Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave Podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on youtube.com/Rogue Matter and streaming live simultaneously on Facebook and Twitter as well. Tonight, our name is Bond, Rogue Review Bond. We'll take a look at the new James Bond film, No Time to Die. Spoiler-free as much as humanly possible. We will also recap New York ComicCon. And hey, Superman's in the news. Is it really Superman, though? We'll discuss. I'm your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my cohort in crime, Mr. Hassan Godwin. Lord of the Radio, how you doing, sir, after attending one day of New York ComicCon?
I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah, you actually thought you were like sick and stuff, right? Like you actually can't. You had the.
Well, I was, I was going to keep that to myself and not share that with the, But now that you've outed that,
I've outed you.
Yeah, I thought I was. Well, I wasn't. I haven't been feeling well for the last 2 days. So that's pretty honest. That's pretty much my reality. But if I'm fine over the weekend, then I know I'm okay.
And it was a masked event, and it was a vaccination event. So
that stuff doesn't matter, man. When it comes to organic, disease and sickness and stuff like that, stuff slips through, man.
Yep. I hear you.
Certain. So I was like, all right, yeah, probably a bad thing. But what's
funny is every time I did something public-wise after getting vaccinated, I wouldn't feel well, but generally there was always a reasonable explanation. Like it's like I even went to the doctor at one point, and the doctor's like, not everything is COVID, and I was like, all right, cool, like, and they're like, you don't have it, don't worry, you're okay. So, but I will tell you right now, and I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, probably, but I'm exhausted. Like, I am still exhausted. It has literally been, and why don't we just kick off our show talking New York Comic-Con, because we both attended. It was I would say the return of cons, really. I mean, and I don't want to understate that, because I know there have been some conventions, but it's definitely the first big convention that kind of happened since COVID. Probably C2E2 in February of 2020, which I was at. So I kind of bookended the two big shows. I know there was a show in Kansas City. I know there was a show, some other, like, I think Florida has had one since, things like that. But it's definitely a big deal. It was definitely a big deal. People keep asking me, like, well, what was the con like? And so that's why I wanted to ask you, what was the con like for you as a spectator?
It was. I thought it was kind of dead for Saturday.
Yeah,
because I was there on a Saturday, so I was like, wow, this is pretty dead. I didn't mind it because, like I said, I didn't want to be all that near other human beings anyway. And there was, on Saturdays, there's usually there's very little room to breathe in those places. There's a lot of traffic. And so the fact that I was able to get from one side of the hall to the next,
not bad,
pretty much under 10 minutes,
was
for me, it was great. I'm sure for the venue, they didn't find it that awesome, but for me, it was awesome.
Well, I gotta say,
I did see some friends. I saw some people I see on a regular basis, and I've seen people that I haven't seen in years. So it was really good.
Yeah.
I thought that part of it was really good.
I got to tell you, there's like the pros and cons of everything, right? And the pro of just be able to walk back and forth. It's almost like what San Diego has become in terms of how spread out it became, to the point where the floor was walkable, and you're kind of like, hey, it doesn't take me an hour to get a sandwich. Like, that's pretty cool. On the flip side, being an exhibitor, I was kind of like, wow, I really wish that there were people more crammed together, because we would get a lot of more traffic just forced to look at our stuff on the table. And I was selling Sire stuff. I was representing Sire Studios. I was with Dren Productions as well, which is James Massey, a friend of the show. So he had a big exclusive, and we co-wrote a book together called Plan 59, so we were selling that. It was cool. I mean, it was definitely cool. I got to tell you, just from a surreal point of view, though, and that's what I keep telling people when they ask me like how the show was. I said, I paid for this booth in 2020, so that money was long, long gone. So it really wasn't about, and now being with Rogue Matter, I mean, a lot of the stuff I have is coming out through Rogue Matter. So it was never really about like sales. I was curious about the sales, though. I mean, 2 years ago in 2019, my sales were through the roof, and people were buying books and comics. Like they were buying actual real content. In years past, we'd make our money at the booth just by prints, art prints, and you kind of feel a little cheap when you do that. A little bit. I mean, unless you're like an artist, but then at that point you go to Artist Alley. Like we're in small press at this point. We're like trying to make money, selling comics. We want people interested in our comics and our writing. And the last like 2-3 years, like that's what has been the case. In 2019, sales were unbelievable. Sales wise, just obviously it was less of a crowd. It was a little more spaced out, like we kind of mentioned. Sales were still pretty good. When all was said and done. James, my convention partner, did a lot better. He tends to have more stuff and tend to have more new stuff. But I definitely, I wasn't turned off by the sales. What I was turned off by was just getting out of my house for 4 days. To be honest with you, that was the biggest transition. I've been locked inside a house with my wife and 2 kids, which I've had the pleasure of seeing them grow up at a very young age, which is really great, and being able to spend so much time with them, that it was weird to have to just get up in the morning, say goodbye to them, leave, come home when they're already in bed. In some cases, everyone's in bed by the time I got home. And that was a surreal feeling, because that's like the feeling where, wow, okay, it's quasi-normal, but every once in a while, you kind of do like a ho, like you kind of have to remember it's not 100% normal, and obviously by the crowd size, it wasn't. But it's definitely one of those things. Did you get that surreal feeling being out? Like I know you said.
Well, I wasn't there to sell anything, so
no.
I don't
The
really...
surreal, like the crowd, like just being out in the crowd, kind of feeling.
It's ironically, it's not the first. It's probably the most busy mass event that I've been to since I don't know, since 2020. But no, I don't know if weirdly I don't get uptight about those. I get uptight afterward.
Okay.
I get uptight when nothing has happened and everything kind of seemed like it worked out. Then I get home, it's like, now we wait. Now we wait and find out, if we got hit by the invisible enemy.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't like that just because I've been inside for the better part of a year and a half, something like that just my sea legs are bad, like this, just like getting around, walking around the convention center, which is not a small place by any stretch of the imagination. And they utilize the entire complex in this time around with a brand new building, with all kinds of stuff like that. And then always, whenever you have to go see someone, you contact them, and they're always like the other side of whatever part of the building that you're on. So there's little things like that.
Yeah.
And it just at my age, at my advanced age, it just saps the energy from you.
I can't do this much anymore. I really can't. I know it is really draining. I'm not gonna lie.
Not only can I not do it, but I also have no desire to do it.
No, I know.
I know. It works in my favor. It's like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore, so I just won't do it anymore. It's not like I'll sit at home, missing it and be like, why can't I be young again? But the other side of it is, on the rare occasions that you do try to bite a little piece of the nostalgia off, it's always a little more than you can chew.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
I agree with that.
And I'm like, wow, man, I am inside, I am indoors, I am walking around, I am, I'm passing by, comic book venues and trinkets dealers and rare exotic imported store stuff, action figures and models and this and that, and I am just wanting to go home. I am exhausted. I just want to go home and not ever do this again.
That was a big thing too, where you just kind of mentioned the show floor itself was missing a lot of the publishers, a lot of the big name publishers. No Marvel, no DC, no Dark Horse, no Image, no. I mean, you name it. I can name you who was there: Aftershock, Source Point Press, and Zenescope. And the show floor itself felt a little bit like a Wizard World show in just the type of exhibitor that was there. And I know New York Comic-Con has been in years past very strict about the type of exhibitor that can be there and what they can sell. And this year, obviously, it was just, we're so happy you're here. You sell voodoo dolls? Come on over. We love you. Do you have bootlegs of bootlegs? Great. We welcome you with open arms, because you can tell. I mean, look, it was definitely a different feel on the main floor. No question about it. Right?
Yeah. Look, it was smaller than it usually is.
Yeah.
It was sparsely populated, much more sparsely populated than any Saturday that I've ever been there.
Yeah.
Save for maybe the first year, which I was there the first year, which also doesn't make me feel young. And I know they want to build on it and make it a better experience next year, but this was
Right.
probably a good run for the experimental. Will we still be able to have shows? Will we still be able to do these things?
Oh yeah.
And like I said, like the atmosphere was pretty good. People were pretty positive. There weren't there weren't a lot of attitudes. Everyone was wearing their masks. Like there were no Karens that I saw. I'm sure there were.
I read today that they actually kicked out some vendors for being maskless. Invasion Toys was one of the was the main culprit of the article I read on the Beat, but apparently New York Comic-Con had to repeatedly warn the people out there, and then Invasion Toys was also claiming, it was the people next to them that was the maskless one, but then they took down all their Instagram reels and things like that. So yeah, there were definitely I wore a chin diaper. If it's the people
next to you and you're getting blamed, take a picture of them,
right,
and prove it. That's the way things are done today.
Right.
So if you don't have the proof, then you're gonna float the blame, unfortunately.
Right. Like, look, I chin diapered the whole thing. I had that thing ready. And I was chewing. I was eating, but like,
here's the thing.
Someone comes up to me, it's easy.
There's this weird mentality that a lot of people have, that even the mainstream media, everything has, where COVID is just like, everyone's putting COVID in this kind of box where it's just something we have to live with, and everybody's, we're doing our best dealing with COVID, and everyone wants COVID to be over, and everybody wants to be past it. Absolutely, so do I. But COVID is really serious. Like, a lot of people are, even if they're not freaked out about it on a regular basis, and starting fights about it and whatever, people take it very seriously.
Right.
So your success and your rise and fall in this particular atmosphere is going to be how well you either handle the parameters of safety for COVID,
right,
or how well you buck against them. Those are the two extremes of the spectrum, and we can't really do anything about that.
Sure.
So,
and also, look, there are rules, right? Like, whatever you agree or disagree with, there are rules, and that's
if you wanted to be there,
right,
then those are the rules. Yeah,
those are the rules of engagement.
That's the venue.
So, but I think you're right, though. For the most part, most people, I didn't find any really that weren't complying for the most part with, the major amount of rules that they instituted. So it was pretty good. I think news-wise, what was the big news? The Ghostbusters screening, the surprise Ghostbusters screening. I think that was pretty exciting.
Well, we didn't go, so screw it out.
No, I know, and I heard about it, and I go, boy, that would have been really nice to have gotten a heads up on.
If I had a dime for every time I said something like that, that would have been nice.
I'm not going to spoil anything, because I don't want to spoil the movie, which is coming out in November. But I will say Paul Rudd was there.
C-3PO's in it.
Yeah.
There
were other people there that one article I read said, it must mean MCU. It must mean Ant-Man 3.
Oh, my God.
But then other people were like, no, that probably means
the speculation
this.
fever.
Well, again, I could go into a little more detail, but I don't want to spoil anything. So it's not really speculation, but I did find it hilarious after finding out about the Ghostbusters screening to read the different articles about Paul Rudd's appearance and what it actually means in terms of, is it part of his Ant-Man stuff or is it part of the Ghostbusters stuff? Because I think they also were not trying to spoil the actual film itself. The other big thing that I read, because there really wasn't, panel wise wasn't a huge announcement show, but Brian K. Vaughan's Saga will be returning in January. So that's actually pretty big news because that's been on hiatus. It's a very popular series from Image Comics. I enjoy the series. So
when are we getting a TV show?
He's got Y the Last Man right now. And from all accounts, I don't think it's doing particularly well. Brian Vaughan's funny, though, too, because he is probably my top 3 favorite comic book writer of all time. Every comic book he's written is, to me, with the exception, ironically, of Saga, which I like, but I don't love as much as the rest of his stuff. Like, he did Paper Girls from Image Comics. Is amazing. His Ultimate X-Men run was amazing. His Y the Last Man was amazing. He's just got such a resume. But he worked on the troubled season of Lost. He worked on like season 3 of Lost. He's got obviously Y the Last Man being I don't know how involved he is in the writing of that. But it seems like when he crosses over to TV, not as successful as he is being a comic book writer. So it's always fun.
I'm sure he's happy to hear that.
Well, I'm sure he doesn't listen to our show. I'm telling him I'm a huge fan.
Someone's telling him. Someone's telling him what we said.
I'm merely saying that that's what he's done TV wise is not as successful as what he does comic book wise, and what he does comic book wise is out of this world. Like, I mean, he is literally, to me, again, he's top 3 in my pantheon of comic book writers. Like,
so you don't know when we're getting a Saga television show? That's basically what you're saying.
No. Okay. Are you a fan of the? Do you read Saga?
I have read extensive amounts of Saga, but I am not caught up.
Oh, it's like 50 something issues, so that's definitely
it's a lot of issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a good 10 trades worth.
Plus, I stopped to start reading Invincible when that started to become that came to prominence. So now that I'm done with that, I'll go back to Saga. But
I'm enjoying the Unlimited. I have like Marvel Unlimited and Comics Solid. I'm enjoying those a little bit more. I caught up on The Boys, the comic. The show, by the way, The Boys, they were there, so relevant. I enjoy the show way more than the comic. Same thing happened with Walking Dead. I watched Walking Dead before I read Walking Dead. Came into Walking Dead, having seen the show, and there were a lot of decisions the show made that I'm like, wow, that's just a lot better, like a lot better. And The Boys is one of those also because it seems like I'm like 4 trades in right now of The Boys, and we've just scratched the surface with oh gosh, I keep wanting to say Outlander, but I know it's I know it's not. With Voight and with that entire superhero operation. I mean, it really took its sweet time. Whereas it looks like whoever was running the show was like, no, we got to get right. We got to get right into all the good stuff, or at least what I consider the good stuff. So, but all right. Any final thoughts to put a bow on?
Look, if if you're young, enjoy it. If you're old, don't go.
Yeah, I love it. Speaking of which, something else that kind of made the round of news: Superman. Well, that was the headline anyway. Superman is bi. According to
buy my book.
According to DC Comics, new DC Comics Superman John Kent comes out as bisexual. John Kent inherited the mantle of Superman from his father, Clark Kent, as is seen putting his own spin on the Man of Steel and Superman, Son of Kal-El. In the upcoming Superman, Son of Kal-El #5, the 17-year-old comes out as bisexual. IGN was able to debut the first plot details, revealing that John Kent starts a relationship with Jay Nakamura, a hacktivist who is a huge fan of Lois Lane. The writer Tom Taylor also debuted a still from the comic that shows Superman kissing him. We didn't go that far. We went just before the kiss with our graphic.
Why
Taylor, because I don't know. It's the one I found that fit our window. Really, I mean, it's more technical than anything else. Taylor, the writer behind the series, also discussed how it was important for him to write a Superman for the new modern era. Over the years in this industry, it probably won't surprise you to hear I've had queer characters and storylines rejected. I felt like it was letting people down that I loved every time this happened. We're in a very different and much more welcome place today than we were 10 or even 5 years ago. When I was asked if I wanted to write a new Superman with a new number one, I knew replacing Clark with another straight white savior could be a real opportunity missed. I've always said everyone needs heroes and everyone deserves to see themselves in their heroes. Today, Superman, the strongest superhero on the planet, is coming out. But it's not really Superman. It's not a Superman, right? And didn't we just do this with Robin? Like, I feel like it's interesting, right? There was Tim Drake came out, and I enjoyed the Tim Drake stuff in terms of reading the explanations of the writer and how they're kind of honoring what was come before in terms of the storylines. That this is about Tim Drake, kind of searching for himself and things like that. And I thought that was kind of interesting. This is also interesting, but it's kind of one of those cheap clickbait kind of headlines, though, when it comes to it, right? I mean, it's a multiverse story. It's Superman's son, but obviously, you read on the news. I mean, I got people texting me and messaging me like, Superman's gay now? And it's like, well, yeah, it kind of looks a lot like Superman. I do agree. But it's not, it's not Clark Kent. And it's okay that it's John Kent. But feels like one of those gotcha headlines where, I mean, even Robin to an extent was kind of a gotcha headline because you have Tim Drake. There's so many iterations of Robin, but I think that, maybe not to the same extent that the media kind of portrays this as, Superman comes out. It's like, well, yeah, I guess he's taking up the mantle of Superman, and yes, it's his son, and he's bisexual. That's great, but I don't know. I feel like it's designed to enrage.
The headline is definitely. I mean, the article in it of itself is loaded with clickbaity stuff and misdirection.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I really have no problem with things like this. I just have a problem with the way they're marketed.
Yeah.
I understand that you need to attract as much attention as humanly possible to, generate traffic to your site so that people will come and buy your, wares and stuff like that. But, not only is it a push for inclusivity and, like diversity, whatever that hot button word is. Whatever diversity means, because I mean, it only means something significant to one group of people. But it is also a kind of a thumb to the nose, to the people who demur against stuff like this. So it's its own battle arena. And you get like a little piece of information from it, and then you click on it and you're like, oh, it's about this as opposed to that, or whatever. Meantime, like the whole wellspring has sprung up, and there's protesters on both sides and sharpening sticks and knives and stuff like that, just to, and it's all BS. All of it is BS. It's fine. I don't really care what any of these characters do. I think that they need to have a life outside of being a superhero. If it's with a man as opposed to being with a woman, that's perfectly fine. I do believe in intersectionality and I do believe in representation. I do believe that's important for a positive, self-image and stuff like that, which makes a lot more, a lot less psychologically damaged people walking the streets among us who are forming or developing the wrong idea about whether or not they're included in all of the stuff that they see every day. That kind of stuff is more important than most people think. But for all the good it's doing, the way the guerrilla marketers are framing everything is just as damaging as a discrimination. So, as I've said to you 100 times whenever we've ventured near this topic, it's a fight between people that have nothing to do with the where the real struggle is in and of itself.
No, it is, and it's funny too because again, I got messaged by a lot of folks who just don't read comics, and they know that I do, and so they see the headline, and it's immediately, and it could be like a wow, this is so great, or wow, this is a really weird because Superman's not supposed to be gay, and now and then obviously you have people that will bring in the political agenda talk and the wokeism and this and that, and but again, it's all based off of the headline, right? And that's what it comes down to, the fact that
but once that ball is rolling, you're not going to stop that ball from rolling.
It's up to folks to educate themselves on the headline, but that's a tall order these days.
And when does that ever happen?
It never happens.
When do folks ever educate themselves on anything? Other than trying to find an article to win a flame war.
Right?
If we're even still calling it that. So, I mean, look, good for Clark Jr. I'm more interested. Like, okay, why did Superman retire? Is he old?
I don't know.
Is he creaky? He's Kryptonian. He's supposed to go like all other iterations of old Clark.
Yeah,
it's just been him with like gray hair, but still being able to kick the whole planet's butt. Whenever he wants to, if you go to Kingdom Come or whatever. So, I get we're doing the kids now. It's an opportunity to kind of reframe characters, and reboot characters without actually getting rid of the other characters, which is a huge criticism that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So we do get a Black Spider-Man, but we still have Peter Parker.
Yeah.
We, in that particular case, we do have a son of Batman. We do have, we did have Super Son. So I know where the kid came from.
Yeah.
But we're more interested in like, okay, why is he Superman? Where is the other Superman? Like
it's off
what
planet.
happened to Clark? Yeah, like is he on vacation? Did he go back to Krypton? Whatever happened to that? So
here's the thing, though.
More interesting than the fact that his son likes to kiss dudes.
Right, and that's the well, so I'm glad. That's an amazing segue into the one point that I had about it too. All the imagery we see is very homoerotic in nature. I mean, it's very the Robin when the story of Robin came out. It was like a more typical comic book art. It was Batman Urban Legends -- 6. You look at the cover; it looks like a typical cover. You even look at the moment where Tim Drake is like, "I'd like to go on a date with you," and there's nothing suggestive sexually about it. And I'm really just I'm focused on that. I'm staring at this image, and I know there's another promo image too, and I'm like, they're really pushing this angle to it. So the only reason to buy this thing is if you are into this kind of relationship or artwork. I don't see it as from a comic book fan perspective. Who's he fighting? I don't know. Who's the villain in it? I don't know. Who's the am I opening up, and again, I'm just talking about the marketing. I have no idea if the story's good. It's not out yet. I have no idea, but I'm just saying in terms of what they're showing us, it's basically like, hey, this is a big deal. And it comes like 2 months, not even 2 months later after Robin is also now bi. So it's very curious.
Everybody loves you when you're bi.
What's that?
According to Living Color. It's a song from Living Color. Everybody loves you when you're bi. So that they're hoping that the characters being bi will cause people to buy a lot of issues, and then
I did my homework.
And then once they've sold those issues out, they'll be like bye to that plot line, and everything will change. So
well, Clark Kent
into the sweet by and by.
I know some people on Twitter were mad at Brian Bendis for accelerating the age of this character. That this character came in much younger and was with Damian Wayne, and they've subsequently
Super Sons.
Yeah. So they subsequently
which I actually liked. I enjoyed that that line.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody's got to grow up sometime. Fine. Yeah. Like I said, here's the problem. This is the problem that always happens, right? You get these marketers, they come out and they make a marketing They make a marketing splash, right, to
Yep.
get your attention, right? But then it riles up the entire situation.
Yep.
The people who are supposed to be served by this, who they're hoping will buy the comics. I'm not even going to give you that tagline that they don't even read comics or whatever. Here's the thing. They're like, oh, okay. This is a reach for, inclusivity. But then, the vitriol is so bad that it, because of the stir up, that it does more damage than good because of the way it's marketed.
Sure.
So the people who it's supposed to serve don't get served either way. And then on top of it all, if it's not done well, it becomes exploitation.
Yeah.
Instead of inclusivity.
A lot of pressure.
That's what I'm saying. So it's a delicate thing. It can be done well. It's been done well. It should be done. I'm all for it being done. I don't think this is the particularly good way to do it.
Made me think of Alpha Flight. When North Star. I think it was Alpha Flight 92. Yeah. Am I right, or is it just came out in 92? I don't remember exactly which issue it was.
It was. I think that was 92. I think it was.
No, it definitely came out in 92. I don't remember if it was Alpha Flight 92.
Because even because I remember my unenlightened reaction to it, so it had to be in the early 90s when I was that schmuck. So it had to be 92. I was like, I don't know. I'm not gonna reveal how old I was then, but I was very young. That was very, very, and much more handsome.
Alpha Flight 106. That was the actual issue.
So it was the year 1992.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Steve Ovecki, the enemy is boomers. Always.
Of course they are. I remember the Alpha Flight thing was on the news.
That's what I remember, too.
It was on,
I kept thinking to myself, no one reads
news.
Alpha Flight.
Which is probably why they said, "Yeah, this is a good place to try this."
It was a safe
experiment.
It was a safe place. Look, the books it just goes back to what you said. The books that have the least amount of pressure can do the most daring things. This is daring, but boy, oh boy,
I don't even know if it's daring. Like, okay, a character is gay. Like characters are gay all over the place now,
right?
And I'm not saying there's too much of it, so nobody get snarky with me. I'm just saying it's not a I had dinner with one of my best friends who came out like a long time ago, and I just remember we were talking, and I remember when he came out, and I remember what a giant deal it was back in the end of the 80s, the beginning of the 90s. And I'm like, can you imagine like making a big deal about something like that today? Now that is a very big part of some people's lives. It is a very traumatic, can be a very traumatic thing, especially if you're not lucky enough to have people around you who are supportive. Mm-hmm. But it's not a momentous thing like it used to be, right? Yeah. So it's just like, okay, this kid, and he's not even. It's just same with the Miles Morales thing, where he's not black and he's not Hispanic, but he's both black and Hispanic. So making him bi is leaves the door wide open for you to be like, well, the gay storyline isn't working, so get him a girl, know, and then we'll do the next 10 issues with him and his girlfriend, and then we'll see who complains the most, and then we'll switch it back and forth. You want to make a bold statement, say he's outright gay. This is not even the statement's not even that bold. Yeah. So
especially a character like him that doesn't have the same history that Tim Drake does, where you have
he doesn't.
You have to honor the past, or else.
Yeah, the kid's a clean slate, right? So you can do whatever you want.
I don't disagree with that. Cameron Christopher Payne says they could have done it without making it an issue, but then no one would have bought the book. No one would be talking about the book.
I mean, marketing in and of itself is the definition of it is making an issue, of everything. So I'm not talking about like not mentioning it, because I think that can be just as detrimental as talking about it too much. Sure. But there is a way to do it. There's a tasteful way to do it. And then there's a let's get as many angry hits as humanly possible way to do it. And I think this is the other way.
I think so too. What do you guys think? Is this over the top? Share your ComicCon experiences if you were at New York ComicCon. Let us know in the chat, in Facebook, and in YouTube. When we come back, it's Bond Rogue Review Bond time. We're going to take a look at No Time to Die. It will be as spoiler free as humanly possible. Yeah, we can pull this off when we come back. Welcome back to...
That break sucks, man. Like, I didn't get a chance to even get a drink of water or anything like that. What kind of break is that?
Gotta have a beer ready and cracked like I do every time.
I don't drink during this show, dude. You do you, but I don't drink during broadcasts. I've learned.
You know what's funny
lesson.
is I actually don't drink much during the week, but I've just been like I'm. Again, this ComicCon just threw me for a loop, so I've just like
being worn out. The best thing to do is just drink a lot of alcohol.
No, I know.
That'll spruce you up.
Trust me, I know it's the opposite of what I need to do. Like I'm 100% aware, but I'm like, boy, I just need like a beer to go to sleep, kind of deal. I'll go to sleep right now. Be the best show ever.
As will our audience.
I don't know. I'll let you run. It'll be Rogue Rage. Rogue Rage.
Nah.
Hassan. So let me ask you a question before we dive into No Time to Die. On a level of nerddom, 10 being nerddom, 1 being geekdom, and we've already defined what the difference between a nerd and a geek is, where do you fall in the James Bond spectrum?
Maybe 7.
Okay. So
I am not. I'm still. I've seen many of the Sean Connery Bond films, but I have not seen all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen all of the Roger Moore one and everything from that on up. I've seen every Bond film.
Okay.
But I am still slacking in the catch up with the Connery years, and I've never seen the George Lazenby, the one George Lazenby Bond movie. So I couldn't claim that I was anywhere near a 9 or a 10.
Okay. No, that's fair. That's fair. I would put myself in a 3 or 4. I've seen, I think, everything from Timothy Dalton on. I've seen every single Bond movie. Anything before that, it's before my time. And the character itself, I like Jeffrey Neary just said Dalton is the real Bond. You know, there's a movement out there.
Oh, no,
Jeffrey.
Underground
movement that suggests that Timothy Dalton is the best Bond. Even though he only got the 1 or 2 films or whatever. It was like 1 film, right? Maybe 2.
2 films. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dalton had 2 films. Right. He had Living Daylights and License to Kill.
Right. I remember License to Kill.
Which I'm very upset that the Beastie Boys didn't provide the soundtrack for it.
Should have been, right?
They had License to Ill around,
We should scrap this and just do a music podcast. I could easily do a music podcast with you.
All right, I'm down for it. Next week. Rogue Wave is over.
All music. It's all music.
Yeah.
Rogue Wave. Just. Oh man.
Our first guest is Barry Manilow.
Yeah. Can you get him? Because if you can, let's do it.
I could get Barry.
What are we waiting for?
That's really easy.
You've been holding on to that little wild card for a while, haven't you?
I could get Barry Manilow to visit my house. That's how unbusy he is right now.
You're like, I could get Barry Manilow at any time, but it needs to be the right time.
Yes, I don't want to pull that trigger unless it's absolutely necessary.
I love it. All right. Yeah, you still surprise me after all these years, son.
I got stuff, man. I got gifts. I got plans within plans, as the movie says.
All right, so I watched No Time to Die this morning, actually, or this afternoon. I saw it right.
Cutting it close.
Near ComicCon, and then Columbus Day right after, or Indigenous Peoples Day.
Could have gone on Columbus Day, man. Get the let out.
No, I got the kids home then. Forget that. So, and then I had, I actually have to.
That's what you got wives for, though. That's what the wife is for. Like,
true.
Hey, watch these.
It's true, but I put her with the kids for 4 days straight, so I kind of felt obligated.
Do it. What's one more day? You've already done it 4 days. What's one more day? I'm going to the movies. Watch my kids. That's how I'd be. No, my wife would know.
That would go over really well. I can tell you.
You can tell I'm not married, right?
happy wife, happy Hassan.
Yeah, or something.
Something like that. But yeah, so I'll say that we're gonna do this spoiler free, right? We're not gonna ruin the film. This
Yeah, because
film
it's
to
a
me,
lot of heavy stuff.
not talking about Bond in general, not talking about Bond actually, not making it about a Bond film, uh, but as I'm watching it, it reminded me of a lot of old school movies like 80s and 90s films. Just the way it was structured, it felt very meaty. It felt the pacing was really well done. There was at no point, everything that happened kind of logically went to the next step. I know there's parts of me that had to remember the last Bond film, which I think was that 5 years ago, just thanks to COVID, all that fun stuff, or maybe it was less than that, but
Yeah, a little less than that.
but
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? It was a long time ago, so that was the only thing. But I understood that because it's part of a series, it's part of the Daniel Craig. What did we say? The hexagility? What is it?
The hexology.
Hexology.
Mhm.
Um, and but other than that, I said, boy, this feels like a film I could have been watching in the 2000s, the 90s, and the 80s in a good way, in a very good way. To the point where I was like, wow, this is it. When I was watching it, it made me kind of in my head think about all the films we've been watching recently and how they're not made like this. They're not paced like this. They're not. There's a certain level of patience to letting scenes develop and letting things kind of happen
Yeah,
naturally.
it didn't have that Gen X flair to it where everything had to be in motion and moving and
Yeah.
over stimulating
Yes.
the audience with
Yes.
the visuals and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like, so I was thoroughly just enjoying it from a weird nostalgic kind of way, in which the nostalgia was just like, wow, films were made a little bit better in many ways back then.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, this is not a back then movie.
No,
So
I know. I know, but it
it's
felt like it. And that was kind of cool. Like, that was a cool thing to be able to kind of put myself in the shoes of how I used to watch movies. So that was my first observation from the film.
Okay.
The second observation from the film that I had, I'm trying to devise how I can do this spoiler free. This is very difficult, actually. It put a bow on the Daniel Craig run in a sufficiently fulfilling way for me. Now, I know you disagree, I think, with this statement, and I know, but to me, in a way, I kind of sit there and say, we know Daniel Craig's not coming back because he has said, this is my last Bond film. If I was to come back again, it would be just for the money. I'm not here for, to do that. I have a very enriching storyline. And I feel like this movie gives it to him. I think the entire Daniel Craig run is just a perfect piece of art that you can kind of enjoy as it is what it is, right? Not a multiverse story or anything like that, but James Bond, look, James Bond exists in a world. I mean, the Pierce Brosnan James Bonds couldn't be more different than the Daniel Craig James Bonds. Both are equally enjoyable. I like Pierce Brosnan as Bond, but it's completely. I mean, this is one's popcorn and one is intense action, right? Or espionage or thriller, or it has. I think there's a meatier layer to it. So I felt like by the end, I was like, you know what? I'm cool with it, because the next Bond or the next 007, whoever that might be, you could take it anywhere at that point.
Yeah. Is that a question? Yeah, I guess so.
I want to see what your reaction to what I just said was.
I agree with what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree that that the Daniel Craig Bond was more gritty, real than the Pierce Brosnan Bond, but I mean, it's a matter of taste. So, yeah.
Really, you think so?
I like that. I do like the Daniel Craig run. I find it to be a bit uneven.
Yes.
But there's more good than there is wonky, because I don't think there's anything bad in the Daniel Craig run, but there's some wonky stuff. There's some like, wait a minute, because like there are many times in this series where they try to do something very Bond,
Mm-hmm.
and Bond is anachronistic, and Bond is kind of like this, this defies all logic, defies all gravity kind of circumstances. But then when they try to do it with Daniel Craig, and then at the same time they have a lot of grounded reality kind of circumstances that happen to him. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, well,
Sure.
wait a minute now. If all this is, it's really tough to critique it, because if you're saying if all this is real, then this guy would be dead.
Right.
Now I'm not talking about like he would be dead because he would have fallen out of a plane and not had a parachute or anything like that. I'm talking about like if there is if being Bond, and they did this in Skyfall, and this was the thing I didn't love about Skyfall so much, is they're just showing he's accruing appreciable damage to himself by being a MI6 agent. And if they're saying that, that your wounds are retained, basically, which is a LARPing term, where you're basically, you don't get better at the end of every movie, right? You just
they did make they did make a remark.
The bullet you took in movie
that works, right? They did kind of.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So if you're accruing appreciable damage each movie, then he shouldn't really be able to walk in the way he does now.
Sure.
And then there's stuff, basically, if this movie, there's been 5 movies. Some of these movies, because he took a hiatus for like maybe a year or two in Skyfall before they realized he was still alive. In this movie, there is a very defined stretch of time between basically what would probably be the end of Spectre, to the beginning of the heart of this movie, which is another 5 years, just like after the after
Spectre was out in 2015
after Infinity War. Okay, so if you're talking about, I'm trying to consolidate these thoughts, so do not distract me.
Gotcha.
You're talking about him being in his 50s by now.
Yeah.
If he started out when he was in his 30s, then it's been well over 20 years. He's in his 50s. Now, there are a couple of times, even in this movie, where he just bounces off of trucks and cars and stuff like that and just gets up. I know that's part of his that's part of his repertoire, is that he's a machine. It doesn't stop. He just keeps going.
Yep.
But then if you're going to tell me, but this damage is sustainable and it's real, then you're breaking the verisimilitude of it. So, like I said, it's just a little uneven for me.
Yeah.
But there's never anything bad, and there's more really good than there is kind of clunky.
Yeah.
But there are some things that are a little clunky to me, because there is very much a part of the very first one, the Casino Royale, that he's a brand new agent. Right. That he's a young man and he's a brand new agent.
Right. So
the third movie out, by Skyfall, he was already over the hill, as far as they were saying. He's arthritic, that he was, that he was, so after a while, you're like, all right, well, if he's sustaining this much damage, then by the time you get another 10 years on, like, he shouldn't be able to walk if you're going to make it that way. But
yeah. One thing I loved about this film, I love the ladies in it. And obviously there's a huge push to have strong female characters in a lot of films.
Boy, catchphrase.
No, yeah, I know. But that's exactly why I'm using it. It's a well-known catchphrase. It's to have that strong female character. I actually think they pull it off in a way here that I don't see in other films. I thought Lashana Lynch as 007 was outstanding. She had a really great screen presence to her, but she also was cognizant that, at no point was she, the typical thing that would have happened was, well, I got to outdo James Bond because now I'm 007. And there was some, some angst, and there was some going back and forth a little bit and things like that. But At no point did I feel like she was in a competition in a farcical way either, right? I never felt that. A lot of films will do this when they're trying to push a point or prove a point that, this can be anybody and, blah, 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 and this person's just as good. They just let her performance do the talking. They just let her character do the showing. And by the end, there was definitely some sequences where I'm like, oh, I hope she's going to come in and save them, because she was this X factor throughout the film where at any point she could come in. And again, when I'm rooting for her to save, Bond, it's because the predicament he's in. It's like, wow, I don't think he's going to get out of this thing, but we have her, and we've already established that she's formidable and she can come in at any point. So it didn't feel like, I don't know, that classic Avengers Endgame scenario at the end. It to me, it never felt like that. It always felt like this was part, that she was just this formidable character, and that was based on just letting the character be the character, letting her kind of showcase what she can do. The other character I love was Ana de Armas. She played Paloma.
Yeah, she was awesome.
She was just so delightful. Like, I was delightfully watching her. Like, part of watching these films sometimes is when you get a character that is both naive and kind of green, or, and that's how she's presented at first in the film. You're like, well, she's obviously lying. And part of me was like, is she going to be like a double agent? Is she going to lie? Like I'm already trying to drop the other shoe in my head, as soon as you see a character. And it just turns out, no, again, they just they let these characters breathe and just kind of be who they are. And both were delightful in completely opposite ways. And so I was thoroughly along for the ride for the entire film with these two characters.
Yeah. I mean, look, the film is really good. It's really solid, really well put together. I would say it's on par with Skyfall, if that was your thing. If you really loved Skyfall, and Skyfall is the most successful out of all of them,
Mm-hmm.
or that's at least the most critically acclaimed out of all of them, then this will be a really good experience for you. It is better than Spectre, which did well at the box office, but was kind of panned because it wasn't that great a story, wasn't as tight a story.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're, I mean, it's got to kind of, my attitude is the story is kind of all over the place. It's really stretched out, and I didn't think the story had to be as long. I didn't think the movie had to be as long as it was. It's right.
Yeah. I'm reading your exchange with Steve Ovecki now on the feed here. Gotta say, pretty solid.
So did you hear what I said just?
No, I missed that last part. What was the last part you said?
That's what I thought. Anyway, that's kind of how I feel about it.
No, you said it was on par with Skyfall, and
no,
if you like that stuff, you thought this story was
said.
all over the place. Now, I didn't think the story was all over the place in this film.
Yeah, it was though.
Well, why do you say that?
Because it starts out in this one place, and there's this kind of weird exchange between two particular characters that leads to one of the characters doing something that gets that character into trouble, and then that causes a roller coaster ride of calamity, and then boom, we're 5 years later,
mm-hmm.
and everything is kind of laid out, and there's a whole bunch of trickery. There's a whole bunch of like, oh, get me 007, get me this person, that person, but nobody really means who you think they mean. And and they do this trick maybe 4 or 5 times where they say, go get me this person,
mm-hmm.
or go get me that person, but they don't really mean who the audience thinks that they mean. It's, there's red herring after red herring after red herring. Takes a long time to get revved up and moving. And in my opinion, you never know all the way up to the credits what the bad guy is after, what Rami Malek is, what his plan is.
I do agree with you. Yes, I agree with you on that. The villain they basically he becomes the cardboard, cutout villain in this film in many ways because of that. I do agree with that. I don't think you're off at all at that. And it's just he's kind of like, well, again, trying to be spoiler free here. This happened to me, and so now
I'm trying
make
so
this
hard.
happen to everyone else.
Something like that. But what happened to him?
Right.
And what do they want to make try to everybody else? And look, it's not a spoiler to say that something doesn't happen.
Right.
Right? It's the exact opposite of a spoiler. It's like they do not define it. So it's another world-threatening kind of situation. It's just like your average sci-fi movie, which is really, really good, but still has the same stupid premise. Like, there's some guy out there with a planet-destroying weapon and an axe to grind for whatever reason, and our heroes have to stop it. It's very samey. There are some elements that kind of drift back into old Bond's, stories where the bad guy's got his own lair and he's got his own island and his own universe happening on there. And he's got some kind of notions of utopian future. If only he can make this cataclysmic horribleness happen and this and that. So that's not giving anything away. That's basically standard Bond. But it takes so long for us to be even head to head with the bad guy.
Yeah,
for Bond to even go up against the bad guy. We're in we're closing in on the end of hour 2 before he actually comes face to face with the guy.
Yeah.
And it's all the other interpersonal stuff that's good that goes on. All the other Bond stuff with MI6 and with M and some of these other characters, it all could have been condensed a little more, in my opinion. It's all really good, and Daniel Craig is, bar none, he's superb.
Sure.
In that role. Everything else is great. There are no kind of continuity anomalies in it. Moneypenny is back. M is back. Ralph Fiennes is back as M. The circumstances are the circumstances about him, basically being there at the end of Spectre. He kind of retires. It's still kind of the same situation. We're not jumping over things to get to a more expedient point, but it actually ironically could have dealt with a little more jumping over some of the stuff, in my opinion. But I think it's a great movie. And I again, like I said, if you liked Skyfall, I think this is on par. It's a good sequel to Skyfall.
How about that end credit sequence where he joins the MCU, though? Like, I didn't see that coming, right?
Yeah. Yeah, him and The Rock. Him and The Rock are playing table tennis.
Oh, crap. That was a spoiler, man. And, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that sucked. Yeah, that knocked me for a loop. It really did. I'm sure they can make it work.
What about that cameo from Jeff Bezos as he's trying to
Bezos,
GM?
Bezos and Space Kirk.
Yeah.
William Shatner.
Like, I'm gonna buy you, Bond. What did you guys
More
think?
power to Bezos. I want to go to space, so I'm going to be nice to Bezos.
Well, he's going to own everything, so you better be nice.
Yeah, I'm going to be nice to him because he's basically my chance to go to space.
He's going to be the hexabillionaire. What would be like a 5?
I don't care. But if a 90-year-old man in the size and shape of William Shatner can go to space, then anybody can. And so Bezos is the doorway. So we're going to be nice to Bezos.
He's your space gateway drug.
He's gateway. He's the Stargate. So we're going to be nice to Bezos.
We've crossed many a terrain on tonight's show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know. Obviously, keep commenting on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook. But keep commenting because we will reply to your comments all week long. Next week, we've got some guests in the house. We got Mog Park, who is a Rogue Wave artist, but she's got her own Kickstarter going on right now. We are going to be dissecting DC Fandom, which is going on this weekend. So there should be some cool trailers, some cool announcements. We've got a lot going on the next couple weeks. We got Dune coming out the week after that. I mean, where else do you want to be? There's no other podcast.
Yeah, hopefully you'll have gotten enough rest so that you're actually having a conversation with me and those upcoming shows.
I thought we had a wonderful conversation. Let me ask you a question. Are you going to watch Dune in theaters?
Yeah.
You can go to theaters. I'm gonna watch HBO Max. Like I'm definitely gonna do that. I'm gonna go
Okay.
against Dennis Villeneuve. He wants
Yeah.
us to watch it in theaters. That guy's a rogue.
Yeah.
We'll probably do a rogue file on him next week as well too.
But you're defying him, so like you don't
That's how-
respect
well,
him.
because I'm a rogue too. Don't tell me what to do. All right, folks. We will see you all.
So glad this is
next
over.
week.
Good night, everyone.
Rogue Wave.